Pela primeira vez na história, pessoas que não são astronautas foram treinadas para sobreviverem a 3 dias no espaço. Um bilionário, uma médica, um engenheiro e uma artista vão decolar nessa quarta-feira em uma nave da SpaceX, a empresa do bilionário Elon Musk. Eu sou o Vitor Sena, repórter aqui no Exame, e no vídeo de hoje eu vou te explicar como vai ser essa viagem até as estrelas. Depois de virar o principal parceiro da NASA com sua empresa SpaceX, o bilionário Elon Musk agora abriu as portas da empresa de exploração espacial para os turistas, gente que nem a gente. Nessa quarta-feira, ou então amanhã, na quinta, dependendo de como é que tiver o tempo na Flórida, estreia a viagem de 3 dias em órbita da Terra na nave Crew Dragon Resilience, com pessoas civis lá no Centro Espacial Kennedy, na Flórida. O horário de lançamento será às 9 da noite, se for nessa quarta-feira, horário de Brasília. Toda a missão é financiada pelo bilionário Jared Isaacman, que vai servir de comandante e copiloto. A artista Sian Proctor vai ser a copilota e a Hayley Arceneaux vai servir como médica. Já o engenheiro Chistopher Sembroski vai servir como especialista na missão. Depois da decolagem, o Falcon 9 vai chegar à metade da latitude orbital e o primeiro estágio do foguete vai se desprender. O segundo estágio vai acelerar a espaçonave até velocidade contínua de cerca de 28 mil km por hora e depois vai cair, deixando somente a Crew Dragon em órbita. A nave deve permanecer nessa velocidade de 28 mil km por hora durante os 3 dias e aí, na hora da reentrada da Terra, ela vai começar a desacelerar e aí vai cair lentamente e descer para dentro da nossa atmosfera. Nessa hora, um pequeno paraquedas vai se abrir e aí a nave vai cair no Oceano Atlântico. Enquanto estiver em órbita, a tripulação vai fazer alguns experimentos sobre saúde humana e desempenho no espaço, que devem contribuir para os futuros voos espaciais. Apesar do tom megalomaníaco, os sonhos do fundador da Tesla já têm se tornado realidade. A empresa SpaceX é fornecedora oficial de tecnologia e dos foguetes para a NASA realizar as próximas viagens espaciais de longa duração, inclusive a próxima viagem para a Lua e aquela que a NASA deseja fazer para Marte. Além disso, o lugar de gente comum nas viagens para as estrelas também parece já estar garantido. A prova disso é essa primeira viagem de turistas nessa quarta-feira. Espero que vocês tenham gostado do vídeo, aproveita para assinar o canal e curtir e até mais.
The crew access arm has retracted, and that is one of the last major visual milestones that we'll see in preparation for liftoff, and it's slowly moving back here, should conclude shortly. And shortly thereafter, once the crew arm has been retracted, we should hear the call out that the launch escape system is armed. And from there, we'll hear that.
Action complete. That is good news. The crew access arm has finished retracting away from the vehicle. So the team suited up at...
SpaceX, you are go for section 7 of 4.100. Close visors and arm the launch escape system.
And copy that, SpaceX. We're go for section 7 of 4.100. We're closing visors and arming LES.
Okay, the next major step, you see the view of the crew inside the Inspiration4 capsule, closing their visors. Make sure they're locked and sealed. The next step will be arming the launch escape system. That's where the Super Draco thrusters are enabled. So if anything happens from here through the countdown or flight, Dragon has the ability to leave Falcon 9 and carry the crew into a safe recovery out in the ocean. We're waiting now for the call out. The launch escape system is armed.
Yeah, John, you mentioned the launch escape system, and
Launch escape system is verified armed.
And there's that call out, the launch.
Captain at SpaceX, we're closing out 4.100.
Copy that, Dragon.
There's that call out that the launch escape system is now armed. And again, this is the first of its kind escape system to provide this escape capability all the way to orbit. You can hear the team here is getting really excited as we march towards T0.
So the launch escape system, let's talk a little bit more about that. It utilizes the Super Draco engines that are installed into the Dragon capsule. There are 8 of them. There are 8 Super Draco engines on the Dragon capsule, and they're aptly named Super Dracos. They differ from the regular Dracos just a little bit. The Draco engines that are on the Dragon that help in in-orbit maneuvers, those produce about 90 pounds of force in the vacuum space. A single Super Draco engine produces 15,000 pounds of force. And so altogether, it produces over 120,000 pounds of force, and that is what is needed in case of an emergency to accelerate the Dragon capsule and crew away from any type of emergency.
Exactly. And like you said, those Super Dracos are just super-powered Draco engines, and the only time they are ever utilized is in that launch abort procedures. So we are not expecting to use them today, but we do take safety very seriously, and we take every measure possible to ensure that the crew has options and has an escape in the worst of scenarios. And like Jesse mentioned before, it's the first of its kind and provides an escape capability for the crew all the way to orbit.
Yes, so that launch escape system is currently armed. Once in orbit, we actually disarm that, and we'll be relying only on the Draco engines from there on out.
Yeah. Now, next up, we will be having prop load begin, and this is basically when when Falcon comes alive. We begin to load liquid oxygen and rocket-grade kerosene, also known as RP1, into both the first and second stages. Dragon is already fully loaded. The fuels for Dragon, the hypergulls, get fully loaded down the street from pad 39A a week or 2 in advance to launch. So it's already locked and loaded. Up next is the prop load for Falcon 9.
One thing while we've got a moment, we were talking about Super Dracos and contingency aborts. You will hear call-outs probably during the ascent, stage 1A, stage 2A, stage 1B.
Propellant tanks will be venting for propellant load.
That just means various points in time, if an escape was necessary, the Dragon flight computer is programmed to do different things. How long the engines will burn, how long it'll wait to coast to apogee, what it'll do to come back down when the parachutes are deployed. So when you hear those, it's usually the crew giving the call out and the ground echoing it. That just indicates we are moving farther and farther away from the launch pad. And so if a contingency arose, different sequences would be performed in the Dragon flight computer. Right now, we're just 90 seconds away from the start of propellant loading. We're at T-minus 36 minutes, 26 seconds. Everything continues to look good for Crew Dragon's 4th launch with people. Today, the first all-civil mission to low Earth orbit. Now we should hear the call out right at T-minus 35 minutes when propellant load begins. Propellant loading will start on the first stage with liquid oxygen and RP1 kerosene fuel. We'll also begin loading kerosene fuel on the second stage. And it'll take us a little bit deeper into the countdown before we put liquid oxygen onto the second stage. And everything wraps up inside the last 10 minutes with the very last propellant finishing up at just T-minus 2 minutes.
So there on your screen is the Falcon 9 rocket at pad 39A, and at the very top is the Crew Dragon capsule where the Inspiration4 crew awaits liftoff in just about 35 minutes. Again, if you're just joining us, this is the first all-civilian mission to orbit, AKA these are non-professional astronauts. They're people like you and me that are, they're going to be going up to 575 kilometers, and they're going to be orbiting Earth there at that altitude for 3 whole days. So you can hear the voices in the background here that are getting a little louder. The excitement in the building here at SpaceX headquarters is certainly growing.
Propellant load has started.
Especially with that call right there.
We're inside T-minus 35 minutes. We are right on time. Propellant load start call out has begun. The fill and drain valves for the first and second stage fuel tanks and the first stage liquid oxygen tank now coming open. Ground system pumps beginning to push the propellant into the Falcon 9. As we said, that'll continue all the way down to T-minus 2 minutes. We'll hear call outs and bring status as we go through the countdown. But currently, everything looking good at pad 39A for the launch of the Inspiration4 crew in just over 34 minutes.
So our crews, like Kate mentioned, are at the top of the vehicle, sitting inside of the Dragon capsule. Jared, Sian, Hayley, and Chris have been training for this journey pretty much ever since the announcement that they'd all been selected as crewmates for the Inspiration4 mission in March. What's super cool is that they are going through the same exact Dragon training as our NASA astronauts. In order to get to visit low Earth orbit, our teams at SpaceX have spent hundreds of hours teaching the crew about orbital mechanics, how to live in space and microgravity, and even running simulations of what a full mission would look like while seated inside of Dragon.
Yeah, the Inspiration4 crew has completed numerous simulations, including a 30-hour and 12-hour end-to-end simulation in our Dragon trainer. They trained not only at SpaceX, but they also did a few other trainings, centrifuge training. They flew some fighter jets together, did some aerobatics in these jets, some flips, and experienced some real G's before this mission today.
Yeah, they even got to pilot the jets themselves, which was super cool to see.
They also completed a zero-G flight, which you can see them there, almost like superheroes. They even climbed Mount Rainier in Washington, which looks like a very difficult hike.
Yes, I think during the docuseries, it was almost a whiteout condition, but they kept trekking along. It was almost 10 hours of hiking, 4,000 plus feet elevation, one of the serious hikes that you can do up in Washington.
Yeah, some great team building, and they even signed their Falcon 9 booster that is sitting on the pad, and that is them with their signatures on the vehicle that they will be lifting off in just over 30 minutes from now. This team has studied nearly 100 different training lessons covering all aspects of the mission. At the end of training each week, crew recorded video diaries of their experiences. In their own words, here's the crew talking about their various training over the last 6 months.
Jared Isaacman here, Commander Inspiration4, and we're like 4 months and a day away from our intended launch date.
This week was really intense because we had a lot of the systems. We got to go into the sim.
Going through some CRM training and looking at what the mission overview is going to look like.
Talked a lot about teamwork and the SpaceX culture.
Week 2 of training at SpaceX complete. This was a heavy week.
I just completed another week at SpaceX, and it was intense.
A lot of good building blocks. So you start in the beginning of the week with smaller things like losing comms to, okay, some circumstances are not so good, and then some get really bad where you have to plan an emergency deorbit, which we initiate ourselves in that.
But man, challenging. I didn't realize how much upper body strength I need, so I need to hit the gym the next couple of months and build up some more muscles.
Today was my favorite day of training because today was the medical training day.
Learn some more about some of the medical experiments we're going to be working with and helping to advance what we know about humans in spaceflight.
We've all contributed all sorts of fluids now to the greater scientific cause.
But the best part is we all got in our spacesuits together.
We got to wear spacesuits, strap into the simulator, and feel like we were actually going to space.
Hello again, Chris here, and it's August 2nd, 2021.
44 days from our launch in September. Everything keeps going to plan, and it's been an incredible week last week, working with SpaceX teams down at Kennedy Space Center, and then back here in Hawthorne this week for some sims.
This spacesuit that I got fitted for about 7 months ago, I actually get to see and try on and do a bunch of maneuvers in to make sure that it's comfortable and then I can move. And I am just so excited for this because, I mean, this is the spacesuit I'm going to wear leaving the planet.
I'm just so honored and thankful and grateful to be a part of this historic mission and a part of the SpaceX team.
Y'all are working so hard to get to Mars and beyond. We want to provide great data, and we're really excited to be part of this.
All right, well, thanks everybody for a fantastic time here in Hawthorne, and also down at Kennedy. We've been doing training down there as well, so really appreciate everything you guys been doing.
This is my final call here from SpaceX. So Rook signing off.
So incredible to get an inside look to their training. Only 553 humans have been to orbit, and most of those traveled as part of government or country-specific missions. As a result, the research conducted on those missions, particularly as it relates to humans in space, is often only accessible by the country or government that conducted the research. Think about the possibilities if the data from all those missions could be made available to the broader science community for research. Inspiration4 is a step in that direction.
The crew of Inspiration4 will conduct research in orbit that has the potential to improve human health here on Earth and for future space explorers. One of the cool things about this mission is that all biomedical data collected during the mission, things like heart rhythm and rate, blood oxygen saturation, among other things, will be accessible for research.
And to that end, SpaceX and the Inspiration4 crew are partnering with TRISH, the Translational Research Institute for Space Health, to collect data and biological samples from the crew before, during, and after this historic spaceflight. Part of NASA's Human Research Program, TRISH is a virtual institute that finds and funds disruptive science and medical technology in order to reduce health and performance risks in space explorers.
Yeah, we saw Kate with Diana earlier putting on some really colorful sunglasses. They're not really sunglasses, but it was an experiment about how do we understand motion sickness and sort of the ups and downs in space. That is something I'm super excited about because I get a lot of motion sickness here, and so I'm hoping that it helps a lot of people.
Yeah, it's really cool to see firsthand some of the equipment that the crew has in their cargo hold. Like we've said before, this is a science mission in addition to it's a 3-day science mission basically. And one of the other things that Diana showed us was the ultrasound reader and how the intracranial fluid changes while you're in space. So lack of gravity essentially means that instead of the fluids in your body being concentrated towards your feet, they kind of they equalize towards your head, which can affect vision. And they are planning to use that ultrasound reader, which they just plug right into an iPad to do readings live inside Crew Dragon of their eyeballs while they're in space for 3 days.
That was so cool to see.
Yeah.
In addition to all the awesome science going up on today's mission, the Inspiration4 team is also using this mission to bring awareness and help fundraise for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. The Children's Research Hospital opened in Memphis, Tennessee in 1962, and ever since has been committed to finding cures for kids with cancer and other life-threatening diseases, regardless of their socioeconomic status, race, belief, or ethnicity. St. Jude has invented treatments that help to push the overall childhood cancer survival rate from 20% to more than 80% in the United States. In developing countries, that number is unfortunately not that high, with fewer than 1 in 5 children with cancer surviving. St. Jude has a bold mission to change that.
The Inspiration4 mission is part of an ambitious fundraising goal to give hope to all kids with cancer and other life-threatening diseases. The goal is to raise $200 million for St. Jude. Jared already committed $100 million. Jared already committed $100 million of his own money, and the team has raised about $30 million so far, but we still have a ways to go. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll notice that there's a donation button where you can make your own contribution. Any amount, big or small, makes a big difference, and it's super easy to do. So go ahead and click the donate button and give what you can to help save a child's life.
Beyond the good this mission will do for science and childhood cancer, this mission is also exciting because it's the debut of the new Dragon cupola. I think we have some footages here of the cupola. It is going to be the largest continuous window in space ever by a factor of 2 and has over 2,000 square inches of viewing area.
And there's a lot that went into the design for this. This is going to outer space, so it needs to be designed and tested for, all the loads that it will see while it's out in space. It's a great view to look out of, but it also needs to act as a fully functioning portion of the spacecraft.
Yeah, we were talking about reusability earlier, and this capsule is being used for the second time on this mission. It previously supported the Crew 1 mission in November of last year, but this cupola is brand new to this capsule, brand new to SpaceX. We're debuting it on this mission, and it is there's a view of it there in an anechoic chamber, and it's just incredible that we're basically going to have 360 views of space from the forward hatch there of the Crew Dragon capsule. And this is an animation showing how its position in Crew Dragon is a little different. So Crew Dragon used to dock autonomously, or does dock autonomously to the International Space Station, that port there being underneath the nose cone, and that was removed, and for this mission is now replaced by the cupola, as we just saw. So super cool new piece of hardware that I'm so stoked to see launch here.
As we await T0 in about 23 minutes, the ground operations teams are doing a series of system checks to make sure both Dragon and Falcon 9 are ready for launch. Let's take a look at what the ascent portion of the mission will look like.
Once we hit T0, we will watch Falcon 9 and Dragon lift off from historic launch pad 39A and make their ascent. At about 50 seconds into flight, Falcon 9's engines will throttle down to help pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure on the rocket, or what we typically refer to as max Q. And it's worth noting that once we hit max Q, the vehicle will be going supersonic.
Once we are through the period of maximum dynamic pressure, we can throttle up our Merlin engines again. From here, we are about 2.5 minutes into flight, and we have a series of 3 events that happen in rapid succession. First is MECO, or main engine cutoff. This is where all 9 Merlin engines shut off in preparation for stage separation. Stage separation is where the first stage detaches from the second stage, with the first stage making its way back to Earth for landing as the second stage continues on its journey with the third event,
which is SES-1, or second engine start 1, and that is where the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage lights up and propels the second stage along with our Inspiration4 crew to orbit. As stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, stage 1 will execute 2 burns in order to make its way back to Earth. The first is the entry burn, which is where 3 of those 9 Merlin 1D engines will reignite and then shut down. And that'll help slow the stage down in preparation for entry back into the Earth's atmosphere.
While the first stage is heading back to Earth, the second stage will cut off its 1 Merlin engine that was ignited right after stage separation. Once this happens, we will wait for confirmation of a good orbital insertion. About 90 seconds after Dragon gets into orbit, Falcon 9 will land back on Earth. The landing burn, a single engine burn, will bring the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land on the drone ship about 9.5 minutes into the mission.
While Falcon 9 first stage is landing, Dragon is preparing to separate from the second stage. At about 3 minutes after the second stage gets into orbit, we should have a great view of Dragon with its 4-person crew drifting away from the second stage. Once Dragon is a short distance away, it will begin checking out its Draco maneuvering thrusters to make sure Dragon continues to increase separation distance from the second stage.
It's getting very exciting here in Hawthorne. The nose cone deploy sequence will initiate just before T plus 12 minutes and end around the T plus 15-minute mark.
Saudações astronômicas a todos, muito boa noite a todos que estão nos assistindo aqui. Queria já dar boa noite aqui para o pessoal que já está no chat aqui, Antônio Castro, Adnilson, nosso presidente aqui, né, a gente, Ale Oliveira e e Julian Amorim tá com a gente aqui também. Esquentando os motores, vamos que vamos. Lançamento em uma hora, já faz um tempinho já que eles mandou. Ale Oliveira, boa noite. Aqui família, Palmeiras, olá, boa noite. Rodrigo, boa noite, tá com uma pergunta aqui pra gente. Boa noite, pessoal, muito emocionado essa missão civil à órbita da Terra. Quais experimentos serão feitos? Rodrigo, eu ainda não sei os experimentos que serão feitos, eu ainda também quero saber quais experimentos que vão ser feitos lá na Crew Dragon, né? Que é na cápsula que eles vão ficar, eles vão passar os 3 dias lá na cápsula, né? E dentro desses 3 dias eles vão fazer os experimentos lá, pesquisas e várias coisas, fotos, muitas coisas que eles vão fazer. Mas eu acredito que seja uma pesquisa contra o câncer, né? Eu não sei como é que vai ser essa pesquisa, mas eu acho que vai ser contra o câncer. Por que que eu falo isso? Porque eu tinha visto um dia atrás que eles estavam fazendo uma campanha de doação para esse hospital. Esse hospital, para essa missão agora, tinha como objetivo lucrar para esse hospital, para ajudar as crianças que estavam lá, que tinham câncer. Então, acho que vai ser esse tipo de pesquisa, eu acho, né? Salve aí para Tadeu, né? Tá aqui com a gente, o nosso ADM aí do Notícias Astronômicas. Salve para você aí, cara. E é isso, pessoal. O primeiro estágio aí, perdão, já tá quase, pelo que eu tô vendo, tá quase completo já. Vou mostrar aqui a setinha para vocês verem aqui na tela. Olha aqui minha setinha aí na tela. Aí, ó, a seta aí no meio, vocês podem ver nessa parte aqui, ó, daqui para baixo já tá cheio já tá combustível, né, que é o propelente. E daqui para cá ainda não tá, né? Então tá faltando esse restinho aqui. O foguete no primeiro estágio ainda está sendo recarregável, né? Tem menos de 17 minutos para o lançamento da missão Experience. Obrigado, pode ser isso mesmo. Eu vi a série na Netflix e adorei receber esse link. Obrigado aí, cara. Tá nos assistindo aqui, tá nos acompanhando. E a Netflix também tá com a transmissão ao vivo, né? No YouTube aí, falando um pouco sobre essa missão daí. Eles vão acompanhar a missão, passar os 3 dias completos, fazer transmissão aí e acompanhando toda essa missão para, né, fazer como se fosse um documentário. Vai ser muito top. Pessoal, que tiver dúvida pode estar perguntando aqui, tá, pessoal? Bom, chegou a notícia aqui. Dentre os 20 minutos até o lançamento, o resfriamento do contraforte do pad 39 começou a separação para o carregamento de oxigênio líquido. Tinha falado que era propelente, não é oxigênio líquido. No estádio superior do Falcon 9. Abastecimento do RP1 é concluído no segundo estágio. Ok, então tá quase concluindo o carregamento do primeiro estágio. Boa noite, Gustavo. Tá também nos acompanhando aqui.
From T0.
And we started covering the action at T-4 hours with the crew walking out of Hangar X. They made their way over to the Falcon support building where they got suited up. And then we saw them hop in the Teslas, ride up to the pad, go up the fixed service structure and walk down that lit crew access arm that we see there Falcon 9 to the tower. And it's hard
Deixa eu
to
ver
believe
aqui,
that
responder uma resposta aqui. Vai ficar quanto tempo em órbita? 3 dias, Gustavo. Ficar 3 dias em órbita, tá? Com, se eu não me engano, 4 astronautas. Astronautas não, perdão, civis, né? Eles não são astronautas, também são civis. É a primeira missão turística da SpaceX. Eles estão só indo para ali para fazer experimentos, entre aspas, turistar ali o espaço, né? E fazer astrofotografias ali.
Yep, and at those speeds and at those altitudes, they're going to be doing a tons of science, which is super cool. And all of that data is going to be available for folks to continue to push the boundaries of what human space exploration will be in their near future.
É isso, pessoal. 10 minutos, já tem menos 10 minutos. Daqui a pouco para podemos lançar a missão do Inspiration. Quatro civis que vão ficar na cápsula Green Dragon.
Joking, and I imagine that things are starting to get a little more serious. They're really focusing in on the task at hand, which is going to space in just a little over 13 minutes.
Yeah, this is very exciting. If you've been following along, they do have a Netflix documentary following their journey all the way up until this point.
Bom, pessoal, eu tava vendo aqui, né, que tinha feito a pergunta. O Inspiration, ele tem como objetivo arrecadar 200 milhões de dólares, né, para um carinha lá do hospital, né, que eu tinha falado no início, né, que é um hospital nos Estados Unidos. E era isso mesmo, né? Que a pergunta aí do menino aí que ele perguntou. Essas pesquisas que eles vão fazer lá na Crew Dragon vai ser uns programas de pesquisa para o tratamento de câncer no osso infantil. E os primeiros 100 milhões foi doado para um tal de Jared Isaacman, que é um empresário, um bilionário de Nova Jersey, e é ele que vai financiar, né, e irá comandar o voo, né, que eu acho que esse daqui que está dentro dessas duas aqui no meio, é ele que vai comandar o voo de hoje. E o restante do dinheiro será arrecadado através do site da Inspiration. E esse site também vocês podem ver no Google, é só pesquisar lá Inspiration4, que vocês vão ver, tá bom? Bom, a altura que eles vão ficar, eles vão atingir uma altitude de 590 quilômetros, né? Muito além da estação espacial e também do telescópio Hubble. Para deixar claro, a estação espacial ela está em órbita na Terra de 422 quilômetros de altitude e o telescópio Hubble é 540 quilômetros. E eles vão ficar a 990 quilômetros. Então, eles vão chegar lá quase no finalzinho da órbita da Terra, né? E também, só com uma coisa, também será a primeira vez desde que das missões Apollo, que a humanidade se aventura mais tão longe do espaço, né? Porque desde a missão Apollo, a humanidade só foi até a estação espacial, da estação espacial para baixo. Então, resumindo, foram até, né? Eu digo com voo humano, né? Voo tripulado. Eles foram até a 422 metros de altitude. Além disso, não foram mais. A última vez que foram foi o voo lá da do Apollo 11, Apollo 12, e e etc, aliás. Mas depois do programa Apollo, ninguém voou mais acima da ISS, né? Por isso que esse voo vai ser tão importante.
Down at about T-minus 2 seconds. Let's listen in on the countdown net for a minute.
Valeu, cara. Um abraço aí pra você e um salve aí pra você.
Dragon SpaceX, confirm crew displays are configured for launch.
9 minutos. 9 minutos. Tem menos de 9 minutos.
Copy that, Dragon. And it has been an absolute honor to prepare you for this historic flight. Today, you are truly inspiring the world. We wish you a great mission. Good luck, Godspeed, and enjoy the ride.
So, Kate, it looks like we passed through another event, the T-minus 10-minute call up to the crew to reconfigure. That final message from the ground team as they get ready to have Inspiration4 team inspire the world. On the Falcon 9 side, we're doing the last T-minus 10-minute checks. And the next major event coming up, I think you've got that event.
Yeah, that was, I just want to note that.
Tem menos 8 minutos, pessoal. Estamos pertinho, estamos pertinho.
And resource engineer. That was the voice of Sarah Gillis. And she is basically the primary resource to the crew. We can see some excitement there on the right-hand side of your screen as the crew.
Como é que eu tô vendo, o segundo estágio o primeiro estágio já foi completo já. De oxigênio líquido. Foi isso. O segundo estágio também está completo. Está tudo certinho já para o lançamento. Para quem não sabe, os Estados Unidos agora está entardecendo, não está amanhecendo. Pessoal, peço que vocês divulguem a live da gente, tá? Divulguem nos grupos aí da astronomia, grupo dos amigos, para a gente estar acompanhando essa incrível live aí com o pessoal. Tá bom? Deixa um like também, se inscreva no canal para estar ajudando a gente na divulgação científica no Brasil e no mundo. E outra coisa também que eu queria passar para vocês, para quem já é inscrito no canal, já tinha percebido já que já fazia um tempo, já fazia um tempo que eu não estava fazendo live, né? Aqui no canal, né? Nem live, nem vídeo, por motivos de tempo, né? Não estava tendo muito tempo para fazer live, nem para fazer vídeo. Tinha minha faculdade, né? Então, eu dei mais tempo à faculdade. Vamos agora para Inspiration4.
Jared Isaacman, and to the right of Jared, Hayley Arceneaux, the medical officer.
Stage 1 engine chill has started.
Aí eu já não sei. Aí eu já não sei. Aí eu já não sei.
Really have a good view, but right now at the base of the Falcon 9, the 9 Merlin engines are beginning to vent a little bit of liquid oxygen overboard down into that flame bucket. As Kate says, that's chilling in the turbo pumps in preparation for going to high-speed flow at T-minus 2 seconds. Nice view on top of the fixed service structure looking down at Dragon. The transporter erector or strongback is currently still clamped onto the second stage right next to the vehicle.
Eu vi aqui a tradução, o resfriamento do motor agora. O motor está sendo resfriado.
Flying away a couple of degrees. What we're getting ready for.
Ok, pessoal. Agora o motor está sendo resfriado.
The RP1 kerosene, refined petroleum 1, rocket propellant 1.
Tem menos 5 minutos agora para o lançamento.
So that leaves us with just liquid oxygen loading continuing on both first and second stage. You can see that moist Florida air slowly breezing by the 2 chilled down liquid oxygen tanks. And you can see the mist coming off as the moisture, the humidity in the air condenses and gives you those clouds.
That super liquid oxygen coming into contact with the ambient Florida air. So creates these puffs of light clouds, as John said, completely normal. In fact, we will be seeing more of those once LOX load completes and those lines are closed off.
Vamos lá, tu acha que a galera tá ansiosa aí? Daqui a pouco vamos lá.
We should be hearing the call that Dragon has been transitioned to its terminal.
Vai dar certo, vai dar certo.
Dragon has transitioned to configure for terminal count.
A galera aí.
For strong back, retract.
A galera tá ansiosa. 4 minutos. Tem menos 4 minutos. Vamos para a contagem regressiva agora ao lançamento. A galera que tiver dúvida aí sobre o lançamento, pode estar perguntando aí, tá? Que a gente vai responder. Eu queria também avisar vocês que a gente tem o Pix, né, aqui do Notícias Astronômicas, né? Tá aí Vocês estão vendo aí a barrinha azul passando, tá aí o Pix da gente, tá bom? Três minutos para o lançamento. Já está se movendo ali a barrinha.
In fact, the last physical event for modification to the pad prior to liftoff. Falcon 9 is nearly fully loaded with almost 1 million pounds of liquid kerosene.
Vamos lá, pessoal. Oxigênio líquido, ela falou aqui. Deixa eu escutar direitinho. Tá completo. O carregamento tá completo. Deixa eu desligar aqui essa legenda aqui. Já acompanha as coisas direitinho com as legendas.
G0, when the Falcon 9 sends the liftoff command to the ground to release it, hydraulics will bring that strong back the rest of the way to about a 45-degree position at liftoff.
Stage 1 LOX load complete.
We've got the call out right on time. First stage liquid oxygen loading is
2 minutos, pessoal.
pumps. We're down to just loading second stage liquid oxygen.
Aí a galera batendo palma aí. Vamos que vamos agora, hein? Vamos que vamos. Todo mundo cantando contagem regressiva junto.
Power is no longer connected to the power systems of pad 39A. As you just heard.
Valeu, cara. Um abraço aí. Brigadão aí. Salve pra você aí. Valeu, Oliveira. Brigadão.
We are under 2.5 minutes until the launch of the Inspiration4 crew.
Então vamos lá, galera, contar com o pessoal aí. Galera aí, a tripulação tá que tá aí. Estou ansioso. Daqui a pouco a gente vai acompanhar a separação do primeiro estágio, tá? Temos a separação do primeiro estágio e o pouso do primeiro estágio também. Um minuto. Dê menos 1 minuto.
And there's the call that stage 2
Eu não sei, parecia naquela câmera que tava chovendo.
With all of its propellants.
Will begin shortly. Expect loud venting.
Announcement to let the crew know that as we vent off various lines on the launch pad, we'll hear some loud noises. Let the crew know. We're also right now draining the liquid oxygen out of the transporter erector, draining the lines, getting ready for launch. Waiting for the startup call at T-minus 1 minute.
Deixa eu ver se eu adianto mais um pouquinho aqui. Opa. Eu acho que eu trocaria o lugar desse. Eu trocaria o Boa noite, Gil. Eu trocaria. Com certeza eu trocaria de lugar com esses caras para mim ir. Eu tinha coragem muito de ir para o espaço. Eu acho que a maioria das pessoas tem, né? Tinha coragem mesmo de deixar qualquer pessoa aqui na Terra e ir embora. Então vamos lá, pessoal. 30 segundos. Vamos cantar todo mundo junto, em casa, toda a galera aí em casa, cantar todo mundo junto. Lá tem um lançamento perfeito aí. Startup. Vamos lá? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Let off. Aí o lançamento perfeito. É sim, Thalisteu. É o Falcon 9, isso daí. E logo em cima tem a cápsula Crew Dragon.
Nominal historic mission flying the Inspiration4 crew. Onboard Dragon and Falcon 9. Great view of the crew in the capsule.
A menina ali com a boca aberta. A emoção, ela tá com a boca aberta. Ela tá gritando. Mano, é uma emoção muito grande, cara. É uma emoção muito grande. Eu só queria ter a oportunidade que eles estão tendo hoje. Eu só queria ter essa oportunidade na relação dessa parte aí grande da aviação, que é muito grande, cara.
We're through the period of maximum dynamic pressure.
Copy,
We're
one
throttled back up, and 1 Bravo, the call out from space. That's one of the abort sequences. That is a nominal call.
Fala a mesma coisa também, viu? Fala a mesma coisa que você falou agora, cara. Também é do mesmo jeito comigo.
Looks like a smooth ride for the crew.
É muito bom, muito bom. Olha, o cara ali animadão no cantinho da tela. Muito bom, cara. É como eu tava dizendo, eu faria de tudo. Eu não precisava dar um centavo a mim. Não precisava dar um centavo a mim. Olha que lindo. O motor de cima, a gente dá para ver. Daqui a pouco a separação do primeiro estágio. Pessoal, quem puder fazer o Pix aí para estar ajudando a gente aí, fique à vontade. Deixa eu melhorar a qualidade, que eu não estou vendo quase nada. Separação do primeiro estágio em 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And Miko.
Aí, separação do primeiro estágio concluída. Primeiro estágio, separação concluída com sucesso. Agora vamos para o pouso do primeiro estágio.
So there on the left-hand side of your screen in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, so we have a couple of views on
Acquisition
screen.
of signal, Bermuda.
As Kate mentioned, left-hand side is a view from the top of our first stage looking down that has already separated from
Daqui a pouco é a reentrada do primeiro estágio, tá, pessoal? É sempre a mesma coisa do lançamento, sempre da SpaceX, eles não mudam. É sempre a mesma coisa, tá?
On the right-hand side of your screen is a view of our second stage Merlin vacuum engine. On the opposite end of the engine.
Agora, daqui a pouco vai ser a separação do segundo estágio, mas vai demorar um bocadão, viu, para ser a separação do segundo estágio. Acho que vai ser algumas horas.
Also have awesome views of the crew inside of their capsule as well.
I'm pretty sure during first stage ascent, I saw Dr. Sian Proctor. I'm pretty sure I saw Dr. Sian Proctor give us 2 thumbs up. I'm sure she enjoyed this ride that she's been waiting for her entire life.
One
Daqui a
notable thing
pouco
too,
vai
is
ser
the
a
sun just
reentrada, queima.
up where the light around the horizon is also reflecting off a very
Essa
high
na
altitude.
tela, nessa primeira tela aqui que vocês estão vendo é o primeiro estágio, tá? E essa daqui é o segundo estágio com a cápsula Crew Dragon equipada, acoplada. Aí os astronautas aí. É um de astronauta, né? Estão ansiosos, estão ansiosos.
New Hampshire. Just before that view switched, we saw some teammate fist bumps going on there inside of the cabin.
Yeah, they look like they're having a fun ride there. And their journey isn't over. We've got about 7 more
Daqui a pouco vai aparecer o rato aí, hein, pessoal? Na tela, fiquem de olho aí, que vai aparecer o rato daqui a pouco aí. Ali nessa parte do motor aqui, ó. Essa parte do motor. Como é que danado um rato vai conseguir resistir? Com a entrada, né? E ainda o frio que no espaço e mais esse calor do motor ainda por cima. Pessoal aí que está nos acompanhando aí, obrigado por estar nos acompanhando, salve para todo mundo.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Deixa um like aí na transmissão, tá? Inscreva no canal aí para estar ajudando a gente.
So far, I was just going to say, so far, everything looking great for the Inspiration4 crew. Hearing that everything is proceeding nominally there with the second stage, which is what you see on the right-hand side.
Propulsion is nominal.
I was just going to say that MVAC engine.
Vai ser a reentrada agora. Peraí. Segundos agora para a reentrada. 6 minutos de missão já. Tem mais 6 minutos. O primeiro estágio está diminuindo. Não, está aumentando a velocidade. A altitude está diminuindo. Está tudo ok.
First stage, you may see those white puffs. Those are the nitrogen puffs helping to steer and guide the vehicle. Basically,
o grupo da Bahia tá acompanhando aqui a gente, o pessoal do grupo da Bahia, ou não? 10 segundos. 10, 9, 8, 7.
There's the crew on the right-hand side of the screen. I think I see some more thumbs up there. Dr. Proctor is clearly excited that she's finally in space. Again, this mission will be orbiting Earth for 3 days, and they will be at an altitude of 575 kilometers, which, if I remember correctly, John you said that that is the distance from Los Angeles to the Golden Gate Bridge.
There you go. They're going to get there a lot faster.
Agora vamos para a reentrada. Agora sim. Reentrada. Velocidade diminuindo. 6.000 quilômetros. Altitude também caindo rápido. 49 quilômetros. 47, 46. Altitude diminuindo rápido. Vamos agora para o pouso perfeito Falcon 9.
Second stage. So the first stage is making its way back to Earth, trying to land, and the second stage, everything is going well. It is headed into orbit with the crew on board.
Actually, there on your screen, you can see a sunrise.
Será que deu algum problema lá no Falcon? Sumiu o motor. Mas ele sempre dá esse suspense quando vai fazer.
All out stage 2 and terminal guidance. We're at the altitude. We're working the angular momentum we need to get into the right orbit. And if you're wondering, crew's pulling about 3.5 Gs right now, less than they took on the first stage flight.
So in about 15 seconds, we are expecting.
Copy, Shannon.
We are expecting the MVAC to throttle down and cut off in an event called second engine cutoff.
Nada ainda do segundo estágio.
Of good orbit.
Do primeiro.
At the same time, the first stage
be
beginning its landing burn. And here we have the MVAC. We just saw that it shut off its engine.
Aconteceu alguma coisa no primeiro estágio. Galera, tá aplaudindo. Acho que pousou, mas não tinha imagem.
Nominal orbit insertion. That's amazing news for Inspiration4 crew.
Aí, olha aí. Mas imagina aí, agora chegou.
An unexplored frontier. A few have come before and many are about to follow.
Pronto,
The doors
pousou.
opening up. It's pretty incredible.
Agora tá tudo certinho.
Stage 1 landing is.
Dragon SpaceX launch escape system is designed.
A galera aplaudindo aí. Um trabalho grande que a galera fez. Mas atrasou um pouquinho o pouso, viu? Atrasou um pouquinho o pouso.
The Dragon capsule and crew are in a nominal orbit. In a few minutes here, we'll begin opening that. In a few minutes here, we'll separate from the second stage, and then shortly after that, we'll begin opening that nose cone. At the same time, we landed our first stage on a drone ship, which is super exciting.
As if the second stage action wasn't exciting enough.
É isso aí. 10 minutos de missão. Daqui a pouco vai ser Dragon Deploy.
There's that MVAC engine, like we mentioned before, it has already shut down.
Vamos esperar aí. Foi o desligamento dos motores já. Os motores do estágio 2 já foram desligados. E eles já estão a 200 km de altitude e ainda falta 300 e poucos quilômetros ainda, né? 357 quilômetros para eles bater. Rapaz, dá para ver, dá, né? Mas é bem difícil. Porque eles estão na velocidade muito alta. Você, por exemplo, se pegasse o telescópio, ia pegar um objeto branco passando. É bem rápido, né? Então precisava pelo menos de um telescópio que acompanhasse.
Dragon will send the command to separate itself from the Falcon 9. It'll be pushed away. Falcon 9 stays in orbit for a while until
a galera.
And then Dragon moves on its way.
Yeah, John, you talked about the terminal count earlier today, and this is almost similar to that. It's like another check before the next thing.
A galera da AB. É a AB. A galera que tá aí, um salve aí, né? A galera aí que acompanha a gente.
Page. The view on the left-hand side of the screen is a view of the unpressurized section of Dragon. So it's the sort of back end, the trunk section of the Dragon. So when we do see separation, we'll see that kind of push away from the stage and make its way into orbit.
Vamos lá.
Once again,
the abertura da tampinha lá.
They are now in orbit around Earth, and there you can see on your screen.
Separação, perdão. Pronto, agora sim. Agora sim, pessoal. Agora que vai demorar pra caramba.
That was the voice of SpaceX Chief Engineer Bill Gerstenmaier communicating with Inspiration4 Commander Jared Isaacman. So Dragon has separated away from the second stage, and that's
os próximos passos aqui.
Of your screen, a lot of space there, and the next signal. In New Hampshire. And then the next event that we are anticipating is the
SpaceX nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts.
We're going to open up that nose cone.
So we heard the call out, nominal Draco checkouts after separation.
And there's that first view that we have over the shoulders of Commander Jared Isaacman and pilot Sian Proctor. Dr. Sian Proctor is on the right-hand side, and Jared is on the left-hand side. And this is their dashboard for the next.
A galera controla tudo, né? Pelos computadores aqui. Rodrigo, Zucloto, depende muito do horário durante a luz do sol e possibilita por conta do contraste. Durante a noite faz pouca luz e transmitido refletido. Sim, é por isso que tem aquela questão também da gente ver os satélites, né? Olha o Sion lá, olha o Sion lá. É o mascote dessa missão. Toda missão tem que ter um mascote.
Oh, like
São
the Golden
cachorro, eu
Retriever,
acho. Eu não tô vendo um
assisted
macaco.
dogs at St. Jude
Yeah.
Children's
Sempre
Sempre
Hospital.
tem que ter um
That is
mascote.
apropos.
Oh, I love it. 5th crew member on board with the Inspiration4 crew.
Sim, é verdade. Tem aquela questão também dos satélites, né? Dos satélites que também a gente não dá para ver ele direto. Né? Ele sempre tem um horário para a gente ver por causa da luz. Galera, já vão tirar o capacete já.
There we can see that they have just opened up their visors.
And there is a forward hatch inside of Dragon between the cupola and the crew.
Isso. Tem que ser ao amanhecer ou entardecer. Isso aí, a mesma coisa do satélite. Se você for ver agora, você não vai dar para ver, não. Agora, um exemplo, se o lançamento do foguete fosse aqui pertinho, você tinha como ver o foguete, né? Por algum tempo, aí depois não dava para ver mais.
Mission Control Hawthorne at SpaceX headquarters here.
Sim, eu também acho que a trajetória pode ser acompanhada por um site, mas eu não sei qual. Tá? Eu não sei qual, mas deve ser acompanhado. A trajetória dele. Mas a trajetória dele vai ficar ali perto dos Estados Unidos mesmo. Acho que não chega aqui ao Brasil, não. Muito difícil de chegar.
Previously docked with the International Space Station.
É porque depende também da velocidade dele, né? Se a velocidade dele for grande, ele pode até chegar. E também da órbita, né? Ele pode fazer.
The cupola, which will basically provide a 360.
Galera, eu vou jantar aqui, eu venho já, tá? Pra gente bater mais papo aqui. Beleza?
I cannot wait.
Eu vou jantar aqui e daqui a pouco eu venho pra bater um papo mais com você, beleza? Eu mereço também jantar um pouquinho, né? Então, venho já. Fiquem aí com um pouquinho da live aí. E daqui a pouco eu venho pra gente conversar mais um pouquinho. Uns 10 minutinhos eu estou de volta. Valeu!
Yeah, this is going to be incredible. And I can't wait for them to get the first look out and hopefully we'll get to see some of their reactions when they first look out that window.
Yeah, so if you are just joining us, this is the Inspiration4 mission, the first all-civilian crew into space. The team had a nominal ascent out of Pad 39A in Kennedy Space Center and are currently in orbit around the Earth.
Yeah, what an incredible place to be in right now when we can say we have now put 4 civilians into space, into orbit. It's been an incredible journey for us to get here. You know, we didn't do this alone. There's a lot of history working with our partners, NASA, to get us to this point. A lot of efforts with reusability and reflying vehicles, which we've seen on this mission particularly. We've reflown the booster 3 times. Dragon, we flew for a second time here. First flew on Crew 1 last year. And now Jared, Sian, Chris, and Hayley are out in space.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Just the fact that these are normal, regular people, non-professional astronauts, and they're now in space. And and it's just wonderful to know that the access to space has opened up. I believe in the note that Jared relayed back to ground. He said that the door is wide open and the view is spectacular. Of course, they can't quite see out through the dome just yet, as we mentioned before. But metaphorically, it must be an incredible feeling to be on board Crew Dragon at this moment.
I bet everyone's super jealous of Hayley and her window seat right now.
Right.
She can just turn to her left and see
Chris,
everything.
Chris
Also has one, yeah.
Speaking of window seats, we are approaching the coast of Ireland. We're 249 kilometers up, so we're heading from the 200 kilometers where we injected to 575. Then we'll begin circularizing the orbit. But more importantly, we got into contact with the ground station in England, and they confirmed the nose cone is open.
Amazing.
So another major event, the hooks that hold it down have opened up, and then the nose cone deploys itself up on its actuator. So that exposes the cupola, and we're going to see if we might get any kind of view here before we sign off.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, we aren't going to the International Space Station. We're actually just going out into space, into orbit. So they will be doing a couple burns. Another one will be, or the first one will be 45 minutes into flight, and then another 90 minutes into flight, and that'll take them to their final orbit of 575 kilometers away from Earth.
So at this point, it sounds like we're actually not going to be able to get views of the nose cone opening and of that cupola. So unfortunately, we won't be able to bring that to you live at the moment. However, we will be providing that footage once it becomes available. And the four of us are super excited to see what our four Inspiration4 astronauts are going to be seeing over the next 3 days. So at this point, Jared, Hayley, Chris, and Sian are now officially in orbit. Over the next 45 minutes, they'll reach their cruising orbit and spend the next 3 days orbiting planet Earth. We'll be checking in periodically with the crew to see how they're enjoying their first trip to orbit and to check in on those 360 views of space.
If you are curious and want to know where Dragon is at orbiting the Earth, keep tabs on the mission with the Follow Dragon tracker on SpaceX.com.
Yeah, and stay on top of any potential live events that we might be able to have with the crew while they're out in orbit by following us on social.
And finally for today, the thank yous. Kennedy Space Center, the Eastern Range for the support getting us through the countdown, the FAA for launch approval, and of course the Inspiration4 crew for their confidence in SpaceX, getting them into space today. And finally, thank you to everyone who is logged in to watch our webcast and donated to the St. Jude Children's Hospital. With that, we wish you a good day.
A pretty busy day. They woke up about 3 hours ago and performed some medical checks. And then they finished up their meal and the doors are opening up. This is the first shot of our Inspiration4 crew members walking out of Hangar X.
This is amazing. There they are, our first all-civilian crew walking out of Hangar X. They look so excited. Right now, they're walking down this pathway, waving hi to family and friends, some SpaceX employees in the crowd as well.
Yes, this must be such an exciting and emotional time for them.
And the crew that you see there on your left-hand side, that was Chris Sembroski. He is the mission specialist. To his right is Dr. Sian Proctor, the pilot for this mission.
And to her, to the right of that is Jared Isaacman, the mission commander. And Jared is blocking Hayley, but she's in the background there. That is the medical officer, Hayley Arceneaux.
What a sight to see. They look so excited. And this is just the beginning of the day for them. They're getting ready to get into the Teslas. You can see one of them there, where they will ride to the Falcon Support Building, which is where the SpaceX suit-up room is. And currently they're at Hangar X. You may be wondering what Hangar X is. This is our brand new facility at SpaceX, designed and built by SpaceX to house our refurbished vehicles.
So some of them are hopping into the car. In the first car, we have Dr. Sian Proctor with Hayley, and following them will be Jared and Chris. You can see the gull-wing doors of the Model X's closing there. And they should be, again, making their way to the Falcon Support Building. It's a couple miles down the road. They're going to be making a left out of here, heading north on Kennedy Parkway at Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
And they will take this one last moment as they're in their Teslas to say goodbye to their close family and friends. What a sight to see. They must be so excited. They're in their Teslas, about to make their way to the suit-up room. One last goodbye to their family and friends.
Yeah, they do have a long day ahead of them. You can see the countdown timer on the bottom of your screen. We are still 4 hours and some change away from liftoff. There is a lot of procedures that will happen over the next couple of hours, and we'll be here to walk you through all of that, and we'll be able to get some awesome views of the crew going through those procedures as well.
Você sabe por que a 123 Milhas consegue passagens aéreas com até 50% de desconto? Porque acreditamos que com inovação e tecnologia podemos facilitar o acesso a viagens para que mais pessoas realizem seus sonhos. Com uma plataforma tecnológica inovadora, intermediamos a utilização dos pontos dos programas de fidelidade que seriam perdidos ou não utilizados, transformando em passagens mais acessíveis para você. Por isso, na 123 Milhas, você não precisa ter pontos para comprar a preços incríveis. Outra inovação é que você compra com Pix, boleto em até 5 vezes ou cartão de crédito em até 12 vezes. Não é demais? Você compra sua passagem com um super desconto, com parcelas que cabem no seu bolso e ainda ajuda outra pessoa a não perder os pontos dela. Todos ganham. Pensando em viajar? Acesse agora mesmo. 123 Milhas. Clicou, economizou, viajou.
Um desses objetos é seu.
Eu queria saber do que você está falando.
Isso é seu! É seu! E aí, velho amigo? Essa não é a sua primeira vida. Você já viveu e morreu milhares de vezes. Você é o infinito.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
The chamber pressure looks good. Doubling up. Roger, Atlantic.
Water towers can fly! Yes! Echo down phenomenal.
Button up, ready, feed off. Bring in, let's feed off. Yikes. You bet. Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good morning, Texas Tank Watchers, coming at you live from Starbase down in Boca Chica, Texas. The sun is about to rise down that way, and we're hoping this morning it's not the only thing that rises. You can see right there, Starship S-20 newly tiled overnight. Workers on that until about 4 a.m. local time, putting tiles up in that big missing section. But let me know if you can hear and see this morning. John Galloway for NASA Spaceflight here. Needs some audio there as well. Yep, I'm getting tons of 5x5s in chat. So we are here early this morning to share with you what hopefully may be the first ever stacking of a Starship on top of the Super Heavy booster. You can see both of those things on the screen this morning. Lifts and workers already up and at them here. So we are going to be coming at you live, like we said, and the NASA Spaceflight team doing our normal live commentary. Hopefully we get to see this thing go. Let's introduce who else is in the studio here with me this morning, starting up at the top of the list. Chris Gebhardt, how are you doing this morning?
Oh, I am here like everyone else, hoping to see a Starship stacked by the end of today.
Excellent. Y'all, Chris Gebhardt, Assistant Managing Editor for NASA Spaceflight. You've heard his voice on our streams quite frequently. Also, back in the studio, we have Steve Marr. Steve, you awake?
I am awake. Haven't been awake for long, and I can report that the sun is officially up here on the Space Coast, so it shan't be long before it rises over there in Boca Chica.
Good deal. Steve's a photographer, commentator. You hear his voice on the stream as well quite frequently, but he will be joining us. Also, back in the studio, Michael Baylor. How you doing this morning?
It is, let's see, 4:38 a.m. I've been up since 3. So I'm a little bit tired, but I'm very excited to see a Starship get stacked on a Super Heavy.
It's almost like Christmas morning, right? You sort of can't sleep. You can't get to sleep the night before. Then you wake up and it's like, time to open the presents. But it's SpaceX that's going to do all the, well, I guess not really unwrapping here because they were putting the tiles on it. Anyways,
They're
the drill.
They're the parents and Santa who, put the toys together so the kids have it to wake up to in the morning.
Working overnight to finalize the tiles on the some assembly required Starship here, huh?
Yes, exactly.
I think it came with batteries. I wonder if I should have batteries on it somewhere, shouldn't it?
Right.
Anyways,
I think Starships come with batteries, right? Yeah.
Also, folks, do not forget, out in the field, rolling out before the sun came up, we've got Boca Chica Gal. That shouldn't surprise you. Boca Chica Gal before the sun rises. You don't get shots of the sun rising unless you beat it in the morning. And so Mary has been out there since super early at Boca Chica Gal over on Twitter. Make sure you toss her a follow if you want the fastest news and photos and stuff like that coming out of Boca Chica. She is the original Starship photographer out there, and this is her camera one right now, I believe. Yep, this is her camera right now, and has a fantastic shot of S20 there on the, well, almost on the pad, on the staging area, I guess. Also out in the field this morning, Jack Beyer has also
Whoa.
Welp, I hadn't seen that preview yet, and yeah, well, apparently Jack has a camera as well that he's pointed at the base of
I guess if it
S20.
moves, we'll know.
Yeah, that will definitely be a great shot to see the first motion of this thing this morning. You can even see where it's bolted, like the actual plates are on the hard points there. Little gap in the tiles down low, and you can see some little spots where the ship is put in position. Now, I think that's part of the transport stand we're saying, not actually bolts through the side of the Starship. But how about that, y'all? Also, SpaceX, you missed a couple tiles. There's 2 right there. Go ahead, Michael.
Look, you expect perfection?
Okay. Well, again, folks, like we normally do, we're going to be doing this live all through the event. We cannot, unfortunately, tell you exactly what time it's going to happen. In the past, we've seen them do early morning lifts. We know out there on the beach in South Texas, right on the Gulf of Mexico, the winds tend to be much lower in the morning. And according to Elon, straight from the horse's mouth yesterday, I hope he doesn't mind me calling him a horse. Anyways, it's straight from Elon yesterday. He said that they had to abort the lift because it was too windy. They could not go for the lift due to the wind. So early morning winds tend to be a little bit lower, and we're hoping this morning that we start to see some daylight there on the bottom of Starship. So, Elon, if you don't like the whole horse thing, I don't know. I grew up in South Texas. That's what my dad used to say. My DMs are open. I'll trade you like a tour or something like that for stopping saying that. Anyways, shall we start going through? I mean, I know we already have super chats coming in. I know there's questions coming in as well.
Yeah,
And
I'm looking through the queue here. Go ahead.
Look, no, the sunrise there really
Oh
quickly.
man.
Look at that.
Oh.
So getting ready to get a little bit more light there, but not too much light with that cloud bubbling up over the Gulf. Let's start going through
Yeah, let's do it.
some questions and stuff, y'all.
Yeah, and remember, if you have a question, hit the @NASA Spaceflight tag there, and we have a nifty little queue that Michael built that we will show that to us, and we can get those questions answered. I'm going to start right here with Marcus Gruber saying on Elon's picture of S-20's Raptors, it seems as if it had no landing legs. What is the reason for that? Yeah, we did notice that yesterday. Why do we think there's no landing legs on the ship right now?
Yeah, it could. So it could be a couple of things. It could just be that they didn't need them on to roll out and get mated for the fit check to the super heavy booster, and that they could be added later on in the flows as they head through the rest of their test campaigns. It also could be a factor that this ship is not currently designated to return to actually land on land. It will simulate the landing. It will, if it survives, if the launch is successful and the orbit is successful and reentry is successful, it will emulate the landing and what it would do, but it will be doing so about 100 kilometers north of Hawaii, out over the open Pacific Ocean. So there might not be a need for landing legs for this particular flight. So could be either one of those options right now.
Right. And let's see. Well, I'm not sure how to say this name. Macreus. Do you know what the wind speed is at the moment? I know over on Starbase Live that was a big question, and we had the little ticker up at the top. And last I saw, it was only like 3 knots. But keep in mind that that's a reading that's coming from Port Isabel. Is that right?
Yeah, it's coming from a few miles away. It's not actually at Starbase. It's either at Port Isabel or Brownsville. I forget which one it is, but it's one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't know what knots are, I don't either. But I mean, I know where knots came from, where they used to drag the rope behind the boat with the knots on it, and they measured how many of the knots on the rope were up above the water. But knots and miles per hour are about the same. And then
Just about, yeah.
Yeah. I think if it's, I don't know, if it's like 10
Yeah,
knots, it's actually like 11 miles per hour or something like that.
Yeah, let's take a look. It's 1 knot is 1.15 miles per hour. So
There you go. Yeah.
after 10, yeah, you're 1 ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you see knots, if you're familiar with miles per hour, I mean, it's almost 1 to 1. So there you go. And that's actually a pretty good wind speed. And Jack had reported earlier that it was not as windy as yesterday.
Look on Jack's camera real quick there. There are workers seemingly inspecting the connection points on the bottom. See that?
I see that. Look at that.
Huh.
Got a
I think
hand
it's a
on
good
it.
sign.
It's a good sign.
And it
yeah,
looks like there are bolts there.
Bolts below the lip of Starship, though.
Oh, that's
So
true. Yeah.
I wonder if those are like little clamps that stick up to it, but it's not actually like that's just connecting to the transport stand, or if those actually go with Starship. I am like squinting down to 2010 trying to see if any pixels are moving. But look at them all working around the base of Starship. One's on the flaps over there.
Yeah.
He's seemingly with a hammer or something. Is he smacking on something? Huh. All of this is good signs, though. Like, this is nice to see, as opposed to
is.
it being completely empty.
And I believe the hammering is called the fine adjustment mechanism, right?
Adjustment. He's got the old Mark II persuader out there, and he's
Yeah, exactly.
a little crowbar or what? He was doing something. Anyways, all good signs. You want to see workers down there. They're doing inspections. They're looking at the base of Starship. So I like it.
All right, let's head on over here to the super chats, and I think I see some questions in there. Desmo Bluefire, SpaceX is keeping us all busy. Question: is Starship better than Shuttle? And Shuttle has come up already in the first 15 minutes.
You can mark that on your bingo cards.
There you go.
Does it count for the bingo card if I or Chris B are not the ones to reference it, though?
Well, you
I
just
don't know.
referenced it, so
We'll
I think
have
it
to
counts for double.
first. Ah, dang. Okay, there we go.
you fell for the trap.
Well, it's early. Excuse me. I've only had like 2 sips of coffee so far. Is it better than shuttle? I mean, if it lives up to its expectation, yeah. I mean, it's already cheaper. It can bring more to low Earth orbit at 100 metric tons than the shuttle could. The shuttle, yeah, the shuttle was less than that. Its full reusability is definitely an advancement and an improvement over everything. I mean, is it better? Like, yeah, and I would certainly hope it would be, considering the shuttle was developed in the 1970s. I would hope we weren't just replicating it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would definitely hope it would be. And yeah, if it can do everything they want it to do, I mean, heck, even if it can do half of what it can do, it would still be an improvement. But yeah,
Yeah, and the
my
fact that
answer,
there's going to
yeah.
be all these different versions of it, I think that's
Oh
that's a
yeah.
pretty good feature, you know.
And I mean, they're already talking about, I mean, not just like the cargo and crew variants, but then like the dual cargo crew variant as well, the lunar variant. And then they're talking about what did Elon say earlier? Like earlier in July, that they're looking at deep space versions of Starship that would never return to Earth. They would just be out there permanently in the solar system somewhere, potentially using them as the probes themselves,
Yeah.
instead of building a probe to then launch on a starship, and the starship might need to take it all the way to one of the outer planets if it's going to be an orbit insertion, let's say. Why not just have Starship be the probe and save even more money? So like, yeah, there's so much use for this. And yeah, more than just a Mars transport vehicle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned orbital insertion. It reminds me that when I was watching the chat over on Starbase Live, one of the questions that was coming up a lot, it might have just been one person asking it over and over, I'm not sure, but is Starship going to be able to do an aero capture on like with planets and bodies that have an atmosphere? Obviously, you can't do it if there's no atmosphere. But yeah, what do you think? You think they could, instead of using fuel to grab an orbit around Mars or something, they could just dip into the atmosphere a little bit?
They certainly could. I mean, and depending on how far you would dip down, would depend on how much of a heat shield you need.
Yeah.
But if you're not trying to necessarily land, I mean, if the vessel is not dipping down far enough into the atmosphere where in relation to its speed, then it might not need a heat shield. If it does need a heat shield, they could still put it on. But yeah, aero capturing would be something that it would be capable of doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
since it's an atmospheric entry vehicle. Yeah.
Right. Very cool. There was a Mars probe of some kind in the last couple of years that did that, right? That did a aero capture.
Did an aero capture?
Yeah. Of course,
Um,
I put
so
you on the
there,
spot. I
so,
can't remember which
well,
one it
so
was.
there, so there have been, so there have been missions that use their braking thrusters to enter highly elongated and elliptical orbits of Mars, and then they dip down into the atmosphere to then lower to then lower their apogee around Mars, apo Aries, to lower their apo Aries points. So I believe the one you're thinking of is Maven. Maven actually dipped down into Mars's atmosphere as part of its mission, but also as a way to help lower the apo Aries of its orbit.
Gotcha. All right, very cool. Let's see. I see a familiar name. Musical Wolves over here says, "Did more heat tiles get installed overnight so S20 no longer looks like an Oreo?"
That definitely appears to be what happened, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I believe DOS is working on a time lapse of said installation.
Yes, I pulled all the files for installing the TPS system, and I literally am right now watching workers work on the bottom, and time-lapsing. It's like 7 hours of footage as they were working on that TPS last night. So it's cool. You see them like, and the lift is going back and forth, and slowly but surely the tiles get filled in. It's a really cool video.
Hawken Ramsland is saying, thanks for getting up early. We don't mind at all. Thank you for being here. Shan L. Scott, your intro music is my happy song. Let's go ship 20. Yes, it is. I love the intro. I'll be
And
honest.
and you should probably all know that when it's playing, we're all usually sitting here behind the scenes whistling it or humming it or or something as it's playing. Yep.
Right. Sid Tovey throwing a little bit for the NSF Coffee Fund. We appreciate that. And Oliver saying, good morning, everyone. Currently watching from work as a nice podcast. Let's have a successful stack today. Yes, that's what we're all hoping for. And
I'm
nice of you to
curious.
join us from work.
Yeah, I'm curious how many people do that. I know it might be difficult to type into chat, but we hear quite often that people sometimes just put the audio on and listen to what's going on, and then when we're like, "Whoa, there it goes!" That's when you pop into the video. I'm curious how many of you actually listen to a sort of podcast mode instead of having the video up. Just type
Yeah.
that in the chat real quick. We'll keep going, Steven. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I've done that myself. I talked about that before.
Yeah, me too. In the
Going down the
car.
road. Yeah, going
Yep.
down the road. I see
Look at
a
that.
bunch of people
Ton of
saying that they
people.
do that. All right.
Wow.
Yeah, awesome.
Sweet.
No kidding.
Podcast mode. Go.
Right.
Dave D, do you get extra or do you get floor mats with starships, or is that extra?
Well, I think the real question is how many cup holders does it have?
Right. Yeah, that's the most important part. Yeah.
Yeah.